Hello, everyone. Welcome back to my channel. I'm Ivy the Occultist, and today I have Olivia, the Witch of Wonderlust, here to chat about death, plants, and tea, I guess. Those are the three things that we are both most obsessed with in the witchcraft community. So, Olivia, thank you so much for coming on the channel. I'm really excited.
Yeah, I'm glad that you invited me. I'm really excited to do this.
Yeah, I mean, I have to say that, so I just started my channel this last year, and your channel was one of the channels that really inspired me to actually do it. And I've been watching your channel for forever. I don't know, you've been on YouTube for like 5 years or something like that.
Way
Ridiculous
too
amount of
long.
time.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. So if you don't know who the Witch of Wonderlust is, what rock are you living under? I'm going to link all of her stuff below. So definitely make sure that you check out the Witch of Wonderlust channel. But yeah, so today we're talking about plant spirits. And I was kind of thinking maybe we should start with plant spirits before we go into death magic, because I feel like it's a lot lighter before we go into the dark and all philosophical and things
Yeah,
like that.
definitely.
Yeah.
Definitely.
Okay. First, do you have your tea? Did you bring tea today?
I actually was going to make some, but I was trying again. I was telling Ivy like just before you hit record that I'm an old man, so I was trying to figure out how to like get my Zoom thing, and I just like didn't. I didn't set up any tea yet. So
No.
I know I was like going to, but I was just I had all the time was on Zoom figuring that out.
Got it. Okay, we can literally pause this recording right now if you want to go make some tea
I
because
will take that opportunity.
okay, let's do that. Go make
Okay,
some tea.
great.
I will cut this
Pause.
part out.
I'll be back.
And with the power of editing, you are back. So
Amazing.
it's like you never left in the first
Yeah,
place.
exactly. They didn't have to wait very
Exactly.
long.
Yeah. What are you drinking? What's your tea of choice?
I see. I knew you were gonna ask. I brought it. It's pistachio torte. I don't know.
Okay.
It's
Delicious.
by Faba Tea Company. I don't know. It was like a sample pack, and I try to use it sparingly, but I just finished it today because it's really good. So
Yes. I don't
yeah.
think I've ever had pistachio tea before. It's not like, is it nutty like hazelnut, I would assume, or what does it taste like?
Yeah, it's nutty. I don't know. It's pretty good. It's really good. It's the only pistachio tea I've also ever had. And
Okay.
I like it a lot. So I usually add cream to it because I like the like nutty and the
Mm,
cream together.
yeah.
So
Yes.
yeah.
Me
Are
too.
are
I've
you
got
drinking
a
something specific?
yes, I'm trying a brand new tea today too, and I just tried it. It's a organic ashwagandha chai by the Tea Spot. I've gotten a bunch of
Ooh.
teas from them, and ashwagandha is amazing for your brain. I don't know if you work with ashwagandha, but so good. I feel like it makes me more intellectual. So,
Hmm. It's also just, I mean, it's good for like maybe it's like the gray matter that it helps because it like when you sleep, it's so good for you too.
Yeah, it
So
reduces inflammation, does a bunch of stuff. So
yeah,
it's very tasty.
see that.
Anyways, let's dive into plant spirits.
Let's do it.
Let's go into it. So, let's just start with like bare bones. What plants are you working with right now? What's your favorites?
Oh my God. Right now, um, an old faithful of mine is nettle.
Hmm.
Love nettle. Like if it's just one that has so many lessons that I just like you can just dive into and never come out.
Hmm.
Um, yeah, I love nettle a lot. Continue to work with it. What else am I working with right now other than that? Datura is another one that has been kind of creeping in here and there. I'm starting to work with Morning Glory again. I worked with Morning Glory like a couple years ago, and then I moved, so I didn't have it anymore. And now I'm like in a place that I can plant it, and I'm gonna start training it up the side of my house.
That's
Um,
awesome.
yeah, I'm trying to think of any other ones, but I think those are the big ones right now. And St. John's wort is one that I'm going to dive into. I wouldn't say that I've begun yet. But yeah. What about you?
I love St. John's wort. That was not one that I was going to talk about today, but I love that one. It's so good for, so when I was going through like the depths of my depression and all the mental health stuff that I went through, which my subscribers are pretty familiar with that story, but St. John's wort was like the herb for that. Anytime I did a happiness ritual or needed to stabilize my emotions, so good. Also, before I go into the stuff that I work with, what do you use morning glory for? I don't think I've ever worked with that.
So I've only ever used it lightly. Like it's one of those a lot of the time, how do I explain this? So my approach with working with plants is really intuitive. Like it just like happens. It's not something that I go out of my way to work with. So I was living in California when the first time I ever met Morning Glory, and it grew like on this huge wall right in my driveway. And it was like a huge protector for me, but it was also this like mystical teacher. Morning Glory has so much like mysticism in it. There's something about like it's like really heavy with divination. I mean, I actually have never really like looked up the correspondences to be honest. I've only really like worked with it the way that I feel like it's told me that it should be worked with. I should probably do that. I should probably look it up. But um I know that there's a lot of like folklore behind it, but I don't know like what the use is magically or whatever, like if you were to look it up in a book. But I've used it for protection and mainly like spiritual protection, not so much like, oh God, there's a fly, get out of my way. Not so much spirit or physical protection. But it is very like mystical is the only word that comes to
Mm.
mind.
Yeah, I like what you said there though, because I feel the exact same way. I actually don't look up the magical correspondences on a plant until like way later after I've already developed that relationship. It's so
Yeah.
important because then you can get your own intuition on it and you can see how does this personally make me feel because all of our makeups are a little bit different, you know. So I
Mhm.
think it's really good and it's just a good intuition strengthening thing, you know.
Right. Well, I just talked to Catherine Soley, who she does like poisonous plant
Yeah.
like workings and stuff. And she's incredible because she also talks about a lot of like communicating with the plant and like not really forcing like biases on it or something. Cause you just listen, like you're just having a conversation basically energetically. And I think that's one of the most important things that like practitioners can learn is
Yes.
just being able to energetically interact with the world instead of feeling like it needs to be like person to person.
Yes. Oh my gosh. I totally agree with that. I kind of started my journey with, I think one of the first plant spirits I ever worked with in this way that totally changed the way I approach plant spirits was dandelion, because we have like so many dandelions over here in the Pacific Northwest. There's a ton. But and usually springtime is my dandelion or this in the spring I work with dandelion the most. And it's so powerful. It connects you to your will. I feel like it connects you to solar energy and like the, sacral, not the sacral, but the solar plexus. That's the one I'm thinking of. And my meditations with it were just so I felt like it was really making me more powerful the more that I worked with it. And I loved going about that intuitive route to figure out how it affects you first without looking up all the correspondences. Because then you look it up and you see, like, oh, dandelion's actually really great for your blood or your health and
Mhm.
vitality in general. So I thought that was really cool to find out after I had already been working with dandelion.
Yeah, like it kind of validates all of the things that you're learning from it, and then you're kind of like, okay, well this is just how I feel. Like we're taught to second guess ourselves so much, and we're like, well, this is how I feel, and this is what I think it's used for, this is what I think the lessons are. But then when it comes down to it, like you look it up and it's everything's validated, like everything's like, oh, okay, like that makes a lot of sense. And it's funny because especially if you start paying attention to those things, like when you see what plants show up in your life, like when they kind of just like make their like when I was I'm trying to decide if I want to like talk about personal stuff, but
We can always
when
cut it out if you feel
okay,
like
it
it
sounds
goes too
good.
far.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And also like the things that I consider to be personal like really aren't. I'm just like, traumatized. I don't know. And so I have trust issues, I guess. I don't know. But like um so when I started working with lilac, like really, really, because lilacs have always been very like near and dear to me. They're one of my favorite flowers. But when it popped up in my life, like with like really big significance, was when I started dating this person that I'm now with, that I've like had a crush on for over a decade. And so like and lilac has a lot of, and like it just kind of started showing up, like, and when I was talking with lilac, communicating with it, learning from it, a lot of it came with this like feeling of, what is it? like it's very like light feeling. Like I don't know how to, it's very liminal, but it's also kind of like this youthful, like light feeling. Very, very like, what's the word when you first get into a relationship? Like honeymoon
Oh,
phase.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah, like just kind of like, oh, everything's fine. And like, it's, we should just, like, it gives me like summer indie movie feels.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
Like that's how I'm trying to explain it. Like something like just live our lives and like we're only teenagers once, like
Mhm.
that kind of like nostalgic feeling. So that kind of came into my life and was like teaching me a lot in just like relationships in general. And especially like romantic relationships, which like, are very different, I think, in a lot of ways for a lot of people, especially when you begin them and with somebody that I've known for so long. Like there's just so many like things going on there. So it was really cool to see that like it popped up right around then. And then like as you move through your life, like all these different my sorry, I just showered. My hair's like not staying in place.
No judgments. It's all good.
So if I'm just like constantly this, that's why. Uh but it is cool to see like all these allies just show up like when you kind of need them the most,
Mm.
which is why I like to just let them show up instead of being like, I'm going to work with Yara and Yara will work with me. Like
Yeah.
it like, sure, I guess, but
Mhm.
I think the most powerful lessons come with when they just arise when they do.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. I think without getting like too personal myself,
Mhm.
hydrangeas and tulips for me always remind me of my mother. And when she was going through, she had a whole cancer thing and she's fine now, but it was not pleasant when we were going through it. And so
Yeah.
I did a lot of healing spells for her and I would always bring in a little bit of hydrangea or a little bit of tulip into the healing ritual. And you're so right, they just show up right when you need them and I think that's a sign, okay, now it's time to work with this plant and
Yeah.
see where it goes. So, yeah, I agree with that. I kind
Mhm.
of wanted, so this bridges into my next question that I had for you because I have certain plants that I work with in certain times of the year. So, like, I work with dandelion in the spring, summertime is like sunflowers and poppies, and then fall time is pumpkins, and then winter, I'm a lazy sloth and I don't do anything. So, I'm just wondering, are there certain plants that you like to work with at certain seasons?
Oh yeah, I'm heavily season based. So I work with a lot of like evergreens in the winter and just because they're comforting, they're warm, like they've got a lot of vitamin C, which is really good in the winter.
Oh,
Um, and they're so protective. Like there's just something so, again, like warm about them, especially in the winter is really nice. And then in the spring, I'm also a dandelion person for sure. Foxglove a lot of the time. Yeah, I love that's also one of my favorite flowers.
that's a good one. Yeah.
Yeah. Let's see. Lilac, of course, in the spring. Love me some lilac, and especially they're so fleeting, so that you only get like that little window to work with them. Um, what else? I think those are the biggest ones. Oh, elderflower in the summer. Love me some
Ooh.
elderflower in the summer. Like elderflower cordial or
Mhm.
some syrup like that you start making for the fall and winter. Just so good.
Yes. Oh my gosh,
Yeah.
so healing too. Like
Mhm.
elderflower and elderberries are so good for you in
Mhm.
every way for our health. So
Yeah.
I
And
totally
like
agree with
fire ciders in the fall, just like all
yeah.
of those, like the ginger and the onions and oh yeah.
All
Love
the
that. Love
root
it.
vegetables. Yes, I love
Mhm.
that. So do you okay, I have a weird theory. I have it's so weird. I don't know. I'm just going to get your opinion on it and see where it goes. But before I even go down this road, I have to put a disclaimer because I'm going to be talking about femininity and masculinity, but when I talk about those two things, I'm not talking about gender. I'm more talking about just energy in general. I've on a couple of my videos, I've gone on a whole rant about that, how it whatever. I digress. Has
No, I totally I get where you're coming from. I get it. I
okay,
agree.
thank you. But yeah, I kind of felt like when I work with a plant, whether it's an herb or plant or tree or whatever, I always get this sense of whether it has more masculine energy or feminine energy. And I've actually broken it down to 5 different categories at this point for genders. So I
Okay.
kind of have, okay, so there's soft feminine, which is
Mhm.
like rose, that's a really great example where it's just this really delicate energy and great for love. And it feels so nurturing nurturing and almost like motherly and protective a little bit. And then there's hard feminine. And these, obviously, I need to change these labels, but I don't know what to call them yet. It's a working theory, people.
Yeah. No, I get what you're saying though.
Yeah. So hard feminine would be more like Rosemary to me, where it's very almost has a little bit of masculine quality, but still mainly feminine, where it's more like protective. You can use it in reversal magic. You can use it in a little bit of baneful if you want. And then we have like total neutral non-binary, which to me is Mint. Like Mint to me feels totally non-binary. I don't know why. I can't explain it, but it
No,
just.
I agree with you.
Okay, thank
Or
you.
either like non-bi, there's what's here, sorry, not to cut you off.
Oh, go for it.
But like non-binary and or gender fluid. Like
Yeah.
so there's some that are straight androgynous, like they are not one or the other, they're just in between.
Yes.
And then there's others that like I can just feel them fluctuate consistently.
Mm-hmm.
And they are just what they are that day or that moment.
Yes.
And so like there's not like a set, like they're not like feminine or masculine. It just depends on when you meet them.
Mm-hmm.
And like if you sit with them long enough. And a lot of the time I see it like it's happening like just in the moment where they're just like masculine, feminine, masculine, feminine. Like they're not staying, they're just constant fluid.
Yes. Oh, that's a perfect term. It's fluid more than anything. You're so right. And Mint has always been that plant for me. And then there's soft masculine, which is more like intellectual, studious, almost withdrawn a little bit and lacking emotion, a little bit apathetic. So it's very much like no emotions. Yeah, super airy, just pure intellectual thought processes, but not necessarily projecting energy. It's not. The next category for me would be hard masculine, which is that forceful projection of actually like penetrating, pushing forward, going after things and whatnot. So I don't know. I feel like there's, and I know that plants actually do have a sex, whether they're female or male, but despite that, I think that there are some plants that just really embody these different, I don't know, 80% masculine, 20% feminine or whatever.
Do you also find that when you meet, so like, for example, I have a lot of like spruce trees that I interact with, but some of them, regardless of if they are the same species or whatever, I can have two different blue spruces and one give me feminine energy and one give me masculine.
Ooh. Okay. So I don't know if I've ever, that's a really good question because I don't know if I've ever worked with two similar species side by side and really analyze the energy. But tell me, like, did you find that out in a meditation? Like, how does that come out for you?
I don't know. Like I've always been like an energy picker upper, I guess, you know, as most occultists are. But there was a really big spruce in front of the last place that I lived in. And I did like just feminine energy, very protective, but very kind. Like she was just always feminine energy. And if I was ever curious, like if I ever didn't know, I would just ask. I'd be like, okay, if I refer to you and give you pronouns, like, is there one that you care more about or whatever? And a lot of the time, like they'll either tell me or they'll just be like, I literally don't care. Like a lot of the time, like, especially with trees, I find that like trees specifically are like, I don't care. Like, and I'll get more feminine from one or masculine from another, but there's also a lot, like, I mean, I'm in the Rockies, so there are spruces and evergreens of different kinds all over the place. And yeah, there are some like blue spruces that I have met that have very masculine energy and like give me that kind of air energy, what you were just describing of like soft male or soft feminine energy of like, soft masculine energy.
Yes. Yeah.
And yeah, like it's more on the masculine side and less on the feminine, but they're both blue spruces. So it is interesting. And like I said, if I'm ever curious, I usually just ask. And for the most part, they're like, I literally don't care. That's such a human thing to like ask or like care about or what. Like they like do not give a shit, but like some of them do. But most of them really are just like, whatever. Whatever helps identify me to you. I don't care. And I'm like, okay.
Yes. Oh, it's so true because here I am like contemplating my own identity. If I had to put myself on the scale, I would say I'm mostly soft mask with a little bit of hard feminine. Like if that's how I had to rate myself, it's probably, even though I identify as a woman, those are my innate energies.
Energies, yeah.
Yeah. And so it's funny. I'm like trying to figure out who I am as a person. And then I'm working with my plants. And as you said, the plants are like, I literally don't care. So
Yeah. Yeah, it's so funny. And like I have had where I've had other, and they're mainly herbalists and not practitioners. So like when they work with herbs, like yes, they are animistic where they give each herb, they see the energy in it. But it's interesting because I have been working with herbs and I've had like a friend who's just a herbalist and doesn't identify as a practitioner, and they're like, oh yeah, well, when we're working with Bay, like she's very good for us. And I remember like just like the Bay that I had was like I could just tell, like it didn't, like I was like, well, and like it was just like I was like, all right, I guess we're not gonna refer to Bay as she, but
okay,
um
same. Bay for me is not a she.
yeah,
It's
yeah.
weird.
But like I find that a lot of herbalists do refer to all of their plants as female energy, which is fine, like whatever, they all say she, which
Mhm.
maybe it's like coming from the root of seeing like earth energy as
Mm.
feminine and just using that. But yeah, like I just remember like it was just like a hard eye roll is what I felt from Bay. Like they're like, oh, like she's very good for this, and it was just like I was like, all right, we're not going with that one. Like it was just really funny.
That is funny. I can see that though, from an herbalist perspective, you really are kind of working with Mama Gaia. So we could all see
Yeah.
plants being more feminine, especially when it comes to like healing too. Yeah, I totally agree with that. I'm glad that you resonate with my weird theory a little bit. I feel like I need to work it a little bit because the spectrum of just masculine and just feminine to me is it's so limiting. I feel like we need like
It
five
is.
different categories at
Yeah.
least or
Well,
something.
I usually try to like go more with the elements when
Mm,
I try to explain energy, but even so, like you kind of have to have both in a way. Like it's like, oh, it's fire energy, but is it masculine fire energy or like feminine fire? And like because there is,
yes.
so it's so hard because it is a limiting thing. And
Yeah.
like the trees have said, they're just like that's just such a human thing to like,
Right.
like it's such an eye roll to them. I'm like, I know, but I don't know what else words to use. Like they're just like, oh my God, you guys are so boring. And I'm like, sorry, damn.
They're so beyond us. I mean, they're
They are, yeah.
hundreds of years old. They're
Some
like,
of them are kind of pretentious. I'm like, look, I get it. I'm like just a blip in your timeline, but still, like, the
yes,
hell?
I love it. Oh my God, that's funny. Let me ask you about poisonous plants because that's something I also wanted to talk to you about. Have you gone down the poison path? Because this is actually from all the work that I've done with plants and herbs and all that stuff over the years. I have never gone down the poison path and I really want to. So I'm curious, what's your experience if you have?
So, I have some experience, and
Mhm.
I'm gonna bring back Catherine from Persephone's Path
Mm.
again because she's in it, and she explained something that I really love. Because when we were talking about poisonous plants, she would always say poison. She'd go poisonous plants, poison, and she goes, I'm using air quotes because anything is a poison. It just depends on the dose, and it's kind of that idea of like blessing and bane grow on one stalk type of thing.
Yeah.
She's like, you can literally die from drinking too much water. Poison, like you can poison yourself by having too much. And it's more of just the dose. But when it comes to what we refer to as poisonous plants, it's just such a small dose. And that's kind of like her explanation. So I thought that was a really interesting perspective, and like that I kind of mulled over and still am mulling over.
Yeah.
But my experience with poisonous plants, I think, started with Bergmansia, if you
Mm.
know that flower. It's the angel's trumpet, I think, because
Oh, yes.
or yeah, angel's trumpet is the one that hangs, right? I think from the top, and then the devil's trumpet, which is datura, comes from the bottom.
Sure. I don't
That's, I
know.
think, I might totally be mixing this up, but
Okay.
regardless, Brugmansia, a beautiful flower. The first time I ever met it was when I was a child, and so I grew up in Colorado, and there's an invertebrate zoo that I adore and love and go to all the time. And it's called the Butterfly Pavilion. And so you go into this conservatory because they have like a greenhouse that they have set up all these different tropical plants, and you get to walk in and there's all these tropical butterflies that fly around. And so they have two Brugmansia plants there, and you can walk, and there's these like gorgeous, they're about like this big, gorgeous, like trumpet looking orange flowers.
Mm.
And I volunteered there as a teen, and one of the duties was to, like, because after they spray them all down, was to look down and grab the branch and shake it so
Mm.
that all of the dew and the water and anything else would fall. And you didn't want to look up, because if you got any of the dew anywhere, like on in your eyes or in your mouth, you could have a reaction.
Right.
And it's a very strong hallucinogenic. And if you have just enough, it's like you need to go to the hospital. Like if you start seeing things, you need to go to the hospital.
Oh
Uh,
God. Okay.
so yeah, like if you get it in your eye, your pupil will dilate, and like, so it can be scary. Like you'll be okay, but if you have too much, like it's not good. And I just remember being so intrigued. Like this, I was like, it's just chilling in there, and I could be tripping on balls, and like that's so scary to think that like this flower could be completely altering my reality,
Mm.
and if I'm not careful. So that was my first interaction, like face to face. And then when I moved to California for a little bit, I started working more with foxglove. And that was the lesson of blessing and bane grows on one stalk, because that has a lot of I mean it's used in heart medicine.
Yeah.
So, like it's used in heart medicine, it's good for your heart if used correctly, but if you just like ate a flower, you would have a heart attack.
Mm.
So it's kind of like this balance of like you really have to be so specific and intentional with the way that you're using it and how you use it. Um yeah, so like that's kind of where I went down that rabbit hole. And now Datura, and I mean Morning Glory is also poisonous and a hallucinogenic as well, but not to the point of things like Datura. So Datura is one that is teaching me a lot of interesting lessons, and I've only just begun with it right now. So I'm curious to learn more with it.
Yeah.
But it's a
That's so
very heavy teacher. Do you know the movie Whiplash? Have you ever?
no.
Okay. You should watch it. It's good.
Okay.
It's good. It's about a like a world renowned drumming teacher, or like music teacher, and this drummer wants to be, he's a kid and he wants to be a really good drummer, and this teacher is like, he's really intense, and by intense I mean like pretty abusive. But he gets like really good people out of it because of, he's just insane.
Yeah.
And I talked about this on like my Hecate course as well, because it just feels like Datura is also one of those teachers. There's a scene where, can I just like send it to you and you can
Yeah,
watch it,
absolutely.
and then you can
Yeah.
link it if you want.
Hmm.
Because it's it's such a like scene that just sticks into my brain.
Yes, I will definitely link it down below.
Okay, cool.
I have not seen a lot of movies because I grew up really, really sheltered, and I actually wasn't really allowed to watch TV. So it's so funny when people are asking me, "Oh, have you seen this movie or whatever?" I just never got into the habit of even watching movies when I moved out. So I am
Really?
so I mean, I watch some occasionally, but most movies I haven't seen. And when people ask me, I'm like, "No, I'm sorry, I don't know anything that's happening in pop culture."
Oh my God.
So yeah,
Yeah, no, what's funny though is like one of my friends grew up in a cult basically.
lovely.
And he didn't like know any Scooby-Doo references. Like there, like just like everything. He wasn't allowed to watch literally anything except for Friends for some reason. Don't
Okay.
don't ask me why that was okay to watch, but everything else, I don't know. I don't know. So it is funny to like kind of see him learn still as like almost a 30-year-old, and Like just some things like most like the general public know, and they'll say something and he's like, I don't get it. And I'm like, okay, so it's from this one show and like the character does this, and he's like, okay.
Oh,
You know, like
I feel that so much. I mean, I
yeah,
watch TV shows now, but like movies for me, I don't know. I think I'm a commitment phobe and like it's too much of a commitment to watch a movie for that long. I just can't do it. But
that's fair.
I will do it if you recommend it. Like if somebody recommends a movie to me, I will watch it. So,
Okay. Yeah. I
yeah.
mean, it depends on what kind of movies you like. This is definitely like, the underdog and then like the whole like teacher student type of thing.
Yeah.
So if you're into that, but this scene specifically, he is trying to get him on his tempo of like, okay, I'm gonna teach you this song and you're gonna be drumming. And he's drumming. And then teacher goes, stop. It's not really on the tempo. Let's try again. So we do it again. And he goes, stop. It's not really on my tempo. Let's do it again. And he keeps doing, and like you can just, oh my God, the scene is so good because you just feel the tension. And finally, the drumming's going, and he's like, all right. This man picks up a chair and just launches it at him. Like it like goes over his head, and he goes, do you know why I just threw a chair at you? And he's like, because I'm not on your tempo. So he comes over and he's like, do you know what an 8 count or a 16th count? And he's like, bop, 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 bop. And he goes, what are you blabbing about? Like, what the hell? Like, count it. And he's like, okay, like you just feel the stress. And so then he's like, you know what? I'm gonna like I'm gonna teach you. So he starts slapping him like on beat. And he's like, was I rushing or dragging? And he's like, rushing. And he slaps him again. And he's like, was I rushing or dragging? And he's like, rushing. And he goes, so you do know the difference. And it's like that type of thing of like, that's how it feels to learn with both Hecate and also Datura. Like those teachers are like, you will know when you fuck up. And it will be a very very quick lesson and your last lesson on that of like because you will never fuck up again. And
Oh
it's
my
like
God.
that's how it feels of just like okay, so like you're very careful with Datura. And so I'm like nervous.
No, that totally makes sense. I definitely had those experiences before. I think that relates more to my ancestors than anything, though, where they're just like,
Yeah.
what is wrong with you, child? I'm trying to
Yeah.
get a message to you. So, yeah,
Mhm.
I feel that. I feel like the tough love. It's really aggressive, but sometimes necessary. So,
Mhm.
that's
Yeah,
okay.
definitely.
Yes. Well, let's like transition into some death magic if you're open to
Yeah.
talking about that. So I know that you've already done a couple collaborations. You've talked about death quite a bit on your channel. So I know that I don't want any of these questions to be redundant, but I do think it's important before we get into the most philosophical question that I'm dying to ask you to maybe like set the stage, I guess, for that. So let me just kind of ask you why you feel so called to work with death in your magical practice. Have you been able to figure that out for yourself?
Uh, yes and no. I think there's still so much to learn, but also I mean without it's kind of that whole like balance thing of I feel like humans and I feel all of us are liminal beings. We're kind of we are in the between stage right now. Like we have been born and now we're on our way to death. And like that's a really terrible way to see it, but there's a comic, like a photo, and it's life handing like a little turtle, like handing it down, and it's crawling its way to death. And it just says that life always, or life loves giving death gifts. Like that's how this all works. And I just thought that was like really cute. So like seeing yourself as like a gift to death almost
Yeah.
is but it's like you can't have light without dark. I think understanding death makes you live better
Mhm.
in a weird way. So I think there's just so much to it, but I definitely think that it just like enriches my life and like makes my life a lot more worth it, I guess.
Yeah.
Practicing and getting to know death and being more comfortable with it.
Yeah, I agree. We don't talk about death at all in the Western world, which is
Mhm.
extremely frustrating. And so most of us are unprepared for the inevitable end that we're all going to come to. And I think there's such a thing as dying with grace. And I think there's a way of living today, like today might be your last day. And I totally resonate with that. So yeah, and I think also, I don't know. I feel like for some weird reason I'm on my last life, and I don't even know how to express that, and I don't even
Hmm.
know if I personally believe in reincarnation either. I'm always like 50-50 on that. I was an atheist for a long time, and so now becoming a non-atheist and believing in other things, it's hard for me to get behind certain ideals, but I'm pushing myself to be more open to that because for some reason there is this feeling in me that I've been here before many times and this is the last time, and I just want to make the absolute fucking most of it, you know? Like I really
Yeah.
just I want to live it up. I want to tell everyone that I love them. I want to not have any regrets, and it's like this weird every moment that I wake up in the morning, like when I wake up in the mornings, it's like I'm surprised that I'm alive, which is so morbid but also beautiful. So,
Yeah.
yeah,
It's perception
yeah.
of just how you perceive it.
Yeah.
Yeah, that is fascinating that you kind of like feel like this is your last time.
Yeah, I don't know what it is. It's just a weird feeling, and I don't know. I think this is my last go around to do something really important, and I don't know. I don't know what it is, but
What if you're so inclined to answer, what do you feel happens like after, or like do you have any theories of like what happens after you
after we
die?
die, that
Yeah.
was the question I wanted to ask you to get your opinion on.
Oh, okay,
So,
yeah, I would love to
yeah.
answer that.
Let's talk about it. Okay, so for me, I there is no label for what I believe, so I can't even attempt to label myself. So I basically believe, and I've come across this in a lot of my meditations. And first of all, I have to say that nobody has the right answer. I don't claim to have the right answer, like nobody knows.
Yeah.
But I do believe in some sort of collective unconscious. And so when we die, our energy gets recycled back into that collective unconscious. And then when someone is born, energy is extracted from that pool. And so it's sort of like reincarnation, but not in the way that everyone thinks, because I think a lot of people, when they do believe in reincarnation, they believe in their chunk of energy sticking to itself and being reborn over and over again into multiple lives. Whereas my perspective of it is when we die, we go into this pool, this collective pool of oneness. There is no separation. So I'm being reborn, yes, but I'm being reborn in the sense of I could have a quarter of this person's energy or a third of this person's energy or whatever. So I actually have multiple past lives that are not just from me, but from the entire human race. And so when I've done a couple shamanic journeys where I go into like past life regressions. And so when you have these crazy past life regressions of, oh, I was a woman in Peru, or I was a soldier over somewhere in Europe a long time ago, and I have like this vivid scene of me being on the battlefield and having that PTSD and wanting to throw up. And it was so visceral. And I don't really think that that was me. I think that I have a piece of that person inside of me, if that makes sense. So that's kind of my theory. I think it's also really complicated as shit. So, what is your opinion?
You are the first person to have the same exact
Oh,
thing. I have never met somebody who has the exact theory as I do.
oh my
Like,
God, that makes
that
me so
is
happy.
insane. Wow.
Oh, I love that so. Okay, tell me everything. Tell me why you think that, because I'm so excited that I'm not the only person that believes this.
No, well,
Yes.
and it's hard, like you said, it's so hard to explain
Yeah.
because it's like something that it's almost like I need like a whiteboard to
Hmm.
like, visualize, like show. But yeah, like it's kind of like I've all okay, this is out there, but I really want to like make a video game explaining it where you like
Ooh.
play as, yeah, so maybe way down the line when I have the access and the money, like would love to. But yeah, it's like kind of like you said, when you die, the energy goes into a pool.
Mhm.
And the way I like to like personify it and kind of make like your own folklore type of thing of like I kind of like to view it as when you die, death kind of has your energy and she like pulls it apart
Mm.
and then like hands the piece, like you're like a Lego piece or something, you like pull it apart and then hands the Lego pieces to life, and then life takes those Lego pieces and builds like can use the one yellow thing, like one yellow piece and build a plant
Yes.
with it, but then
Yes.
like uses like four blue pieces and a yellow to like build, a person or like an animal, like so there, it's just like percentages, and it could be such a small percentage in one piece and then like a huge percentage in another, or like it's up to the odds or life, or like, you know, if you believe in deities or something like that. So it is kind of, yeah, that's how I view it. It's very like just dispersed. I view energy and like the universe as like a working ecosystem, and less of like somebody pulling the strings that's like cognitive and like, you know,
Yeah.
I guess like a person of some sort, like an energy that's like
Words don't
knowledgeable of what
lie.
they're doing. Like it's more of just a well-oiled machine type of thing.
Yes. Yeah, I agree with that. And I've used the color, the way that you were talking about Legos, I've literally used color to explain this to other people. Like I
Yeah.
would say, okay, maybe I have like 3 purple pieces and 2 blue pieces and 1 yellow. And then when I go back into the collective, that all separates again. And then the collective takes those little Lego pieces. I've literally used that exact same
Mhm.
analogy. That's so
Yeah,
funny.
it's like paint or something. You're like taking a little bit of each paint, and like it depends on how much paint you use, but like then it creates that new color. And
Yeah.
it's, yeah, so that's, I am still blown away that you were the first person I have ever met that has the same exact theory. I have never met somebody.
Same. And I feel like I felt like I was crazy. And so I kind of came across this because people that watch my channel already know that I was a Buddhist for a long time. And so when I was in those teachings, meditations, I practiced Zen Buddhism, and it was more about the meditations rather than anything else, kind of finding your own gnosis. But anyways, it was during those meditations and those transcendental experiences where it just felt like there was oneness after we die, and there's no possible way that we could all be separated. At least to me, I mean, we all are connected as a
Mhm.
species, as an energy hub. I don't even know what to call it. So
Yeah,
it just makes sense in my mind that it all goes into a pool and that there is no separation. So
right. And also like the idea that we are literally made of stardust,
mm,
that's just, that still blows my mind that like
yeah.
we're literally made of like, that's just so cool. What, like you know,
Yeah.
like the fact that like something's so far away that's literally otherworldly, like that is not of our world,
Mhm.
is still part of us, like as our being, like as our physical making, is just, there has to be something, you know, like there
Yeah.
has to be something that like connects us all in some way.
I
um
totally agree.
yeah.
Okay, so let me get your opinion on this then.
Okay.
So I have always looked at the planet Earth as, so if you look inside of a cell, you have like the nucleus, you have the mitochondria, the ribosomes, all these different pieces in a cell. And when you look at the solar system, to me, it looks very similar. The Earth could be, you know, a ribosome, and Jupiter could be a, I don't know, the sun's the nucleus, obviously, but different planets could be these different pieces of this cell. And this, our entire solar system is one cell unit, and then each solar system is a whole separate solar unit that makes up an even bigger I don't know, organism or something. So that's kind of how I look at it. I don't know. What's your opinion on the solar system if you have one?
um I don't actually, I
Hmm.
try to stay like earthy. I think the thought of
Fair.
like void space scares the shit out of me.
Fair.
um Terrifying, but I think it's still fascinating, but terrifying.
Yeah.
So I try not to think about it, if I'm being honest, but I love that theory, and that could go so, like it gives me very what is it, Men in Black, like
Oh.
where it's all of it is just in that little marble,
Yeah.
and it's kind of like crazy to think about. You don't know.
Yeah.
I like you could be like, we could be a cell, or
Yeah.
like a part of a cell. Like that is a weird thing to think about, but a
Hmm.
really, I would totally sit and meditate on that when I
Yeah.
feel mentally inclined.
Right.
But
Honestly, I try not to like go too deep down that route because it
oh,
flips
I'm fine
into
with that.
insanity.
Yeah.
Like it's so scary though to think about the black void beyond. We just don't know. It's
Yeah.
terrifying to realize
Mhm.
how small we are sometimes. So
Right.
I get
Yeah.
that. It's
It's a
scary.
lot.
Yeah.
But I mean, as is like meditation when you go into, or I don't know if you scry at all.
Sometimes I usually tarot is like my go-to, but
Okay.
sometimes.
Yeah, I like scrying, but it's so fucking creepy. Like it's just and I get why people don't like it. Um, but like it's like seeing something creepy at the end of your hallway at night. Like that's how I feel like scrying usually goes.
Hmm.
And it's like one of those things of like you kind of have to be like mentally prepared to do it.
Yeah.
And going in, like I feel like spirits are so much more they're so visual when you're scrying. And so like if you're not a visual like if you're like if you don't like visual input, especially from spirits, and like the way that some spirits show you things, like they don't understand that it's like, I didn't want to see that, you know, like it's like there's some things that you're like, why the fuck did you show it to me like that, or like
Yeah.
why, and they're like, this is just, and you're like, no, that's not okay, like I'm a human, I can't, what the fuck, like, and they're like, oh, it's like
Yeah, that's a trial by fire. That's where my ancestors
yeah,
come in and
yeah,
they're like, all right,
there's
child.
uh there's a specific spirit that anytime I scry, they always make it look like my face is melting off my body.
Oh my
And
God.
so that's how I
Why?
know that it's that. And I'm just like, bro, like you couldn't like have me like, you know, see two letters or like a
No.
pansy. No, it's like, we're just gonna take that off really quick. And I'm like, oh, okay, you're here. Great.
Okay. I
Appreciate
mean, that's
that.
amazing that you're able to figure out that it's a spirit doing that and that you're not insane. So like good for you.
Right.
But
Yeah. Yeah.
thanks
I
a
think
lot.
that's another thing is like scrying is definitely in that realm of like, am I just seeing things because I'm crazy?
Yeah. Yeah, I totally feel that. So, okay, so have you ever done a seance, like in a like a full-blown seance? What has been your experiences? Feel free to word vomit.
Yeah, I like doing seances a lot actually. And I've gotten like fairly casual with them. I don't know if it's a good thing, but like,
Eh,
you know, I like talking to the dead. They're nice for the
yeah.
most part. I love cemeteries, and I spend a lot of my time in cemeteries just because they're quiet, they're comforting.
Mhm.
It kind of feels like passive company. Like you have somebody there, but like you don't really need to feel the need to interact with them type of thing.
Yeah.
Um, and my seances, like I said, are very casual at this point. Like I'm not usually setting up all the candles and like, you know, saying whatever. Cause for the most part, I'm not trying to reach anybody super specific.
Mhm.
That's the only time I'm usually doing the whole thing is when I'm trying to reach somebody really specific. And that's very rare when I'm trying to reach a specific person who
Mhm.
died. Um, and then my ancestors, I'll do like seances, but it's more of like an ancestor working ritual and less of like, I guess, just raising the dead in a way.
Yeah.
But what is interesting is I had a recent, like, what is it? Interaction, I guess. So I was moving. I was about to move, and I have this mirror that's still in the old room. Um, and it's this mirror that I got at a garage sale for like $5 off the road, you know, like really it's cute, little scratched up. And I've had it for years. So I've wiped it down, I've cleaned it, all that stuff. And I had it hanging in my room. And one day I came home and there's writing on my, like, this is out of a movie, I swear to God. I was like, so, and it says, I think I wrote it down somewhere. But it has a name, like somebody like wrote a name and then it says, is has victory or something like name has victory, and then drew like a little crown like over it. And I'll find the photo, like there's like a
Yeah.
video that I took, I'll find it and I'll send it to you and you can
Yeah.
like put it in there.
Yeah.
It's really quick and it's really kind of hard to see, but I was like, and nobody comes into my room, like at least when I was living there, like no, I lived on the third floor, everybody like just left me in my little den and like never bothered me. And so I was like, what? So I took a photo and I went downstairs and I showed my mom and I was like, did you do this? And she goes, no, I'm not. Why would I be in your room? And so I showed my little brother and I was like, did you do this? Or did any of your friends like go upstairs and like fuck with my shit? And he's like, no. And so I was like, what's good? And I don't know this name. And so I'm like, I had no explanation, like, and I don't have
Wow.
friends over, like I don't bring my, I have a
Yeah.
friend that comes over and she has tea with me, but like I she would never, she's like more spooked by spirits than a lot of people, so
Okay.
like she would not do that to
Hmm.
me. And so I'm like,
Mm.
where did this, like, I still to this day have no idea where it came from. I was looking up names, I was looking up like any people who had died or passed away. The closest I got was somebody who passed away in California where I got the mirror, but I couldn't, like, it wasn't the exact name. So like I have
Weird.
no idea why. And so literally I like was like, hey, if you want to talk or like you need something, like just be a little more clear about, I know you literally wrote something, but I was like, I don't know what's going on. Or
Yeah.
if you're just saying that you just like want me to know that you're here.
Yeah.
Never heard anything after that. Nothing ever happened. Like super weird.
Weird.
So I still am baffled because again, like it's the mirror in my room. So obviously like I wipe it down often, I cleanse it, I like
Mhm.
lock it.
Yeah.
So I have no idea where that came from. And it was around when the veil was thin in like October. So I think it was just like an, I don't know, an uproar of the spirit. I have no idea.
Yeah, that's so okay, that's weird because I've had a couple interactions like that where they just show up once. It's like a big Hollywood event and
Yeah.
then I never see them again. And then I wonder if because I'm always curious how time works with spirits and I know that the time is possibly different for them. It's not linear. And so I'm wondering if maybe it's more like a premonition thing, like they're just letting you know of something that may come up in the next 6 months. I don't know. I've definitely found with working with weird spirits like that, where they come in just once, I will have something like some sort of event happen a couple months later. And then I'm like, oh, that really relates to what the spirit was saying like months
Hmm.
ago, but their timing's weird. So I don't know. Maybe they just suck at timing. I don't-
Yeah, I mean, like I said, I mean, I wrote it down because my motto, especially if people follow me, you'll know. I'll be like, write it down.
Yeah.
Write everything down. Because even things that you don't think are important, like will
Yeah.
come up and you'll be like if you don't get it at the time, you will.
Yeah.
You know,
Exactly. I agree. You have to write everything
especially with
down.
spirits. And I do think that like time, like spirit time, is
Mhm.
a important topic that I don't think really people talk about. Because it's
No.
like time is a, again, it's like a human thing. It's
Hmm.
just a human measurement. So in the spirit realm, I couldn't imagine, I have no idea what the hell it could be like, like
Yeah.
it could be slower, it could be faster, it could be both, like
Yeah. I
so.
love that. And I love what you said earlier too about being more casual with your seances because that's really how I practice now too. Like I felt like I had to read a lot and research a lot and I think that's very important, but then I got to a point where I was like, you know what? I'm just going to not I'm getting a little lazy, but also I have found a relationship with my spirits to where I don't need to do all the dogmatic stuff anymore and
Yeah.
it's so much easier. I did do so last year was my first official seance with like a large group of people and
Mm.
it was so epic. Oh my God. It was the coolest experience ever because so I'm in a coven and we decided to do a Samhain retreat. So we rented an Airbnb out in the middle of nowhere. And we usually have retreats like once or twice a year. So, anyways, we
Mhm.
went out there and one of my coven mates is really skilled at leading seances. So she led us and oh my God, so fucking cool. Let me just say, if I was a non-believer beforehand, any ounce of atheism that I had in my body is
Yeah.
just
Well, what
levitated.
can you talk about
Yeah.
it?
Yeah. I mean,
Tell me
so
what happened. Like, yeah, like I want to know what was like, I believe, like what happened.
it was great because I'm so skeptical about anything in the magical community. And like, anyway, so we all sat down. We had one particular person that each of us wanted to connect to. And so without getting too personal, I had someone that I wanted to connect to that had passed on and we all kind of did. And so we sat down in this seance and it was so when we called in a specific spirit for a certain person, all of us got the same exact sensation for each spirit that we were working with. So, like, for example, spirit number one, we all were freezing cold. And then spirit number two, all of us started profusely sweating, or like it was just crazy experiences. Like, there was this,
Whoa.
it was so crazy. There was one
So
spirit.
if I
Oh,
ever visit, have this person hold another seance.
yeah,
I
I
want to
totally
see this.
will. Yeah, it was
I
like,
would love that.
it was so cool because we were all using different divination systems and we were starting to find that some of us were starting to pull the same tarot cards for the spirit that we were talking to.
Oh
And
my
it was like
God.
there was a correlation there. And then there was this one spirit that like we all felt extremely intoxicated, nauseous, and drunk when this spirit came in. Like we all just instantly went, "Ugh," like we wanted to just, it was weird because when you're sitting in a seance, you try not to make assumptions on anything that's happening. You try to just note what it is that you're experiencing. Like I
Right.
have left leg pain right now. I'm feeling nauseous. I'm cold. I'm hot, whatever. You don't try to analyze it as in, oh, was this person maybe blah blah blah. You're just trying to call out the experiences that you're experiencing. And so when we were all it was just it was crazy. It was so cool. And my little atheist heart was no more. And now I'm full on in the spirit train. Yeah.
Yeah, well, so I talk about this a lot when I talk about spirit work.
Mhm.
So there's two instances, and the first instance, I didn't realize I was doing spirit work when I was younger, but you know, like that's usually how it happens. You're just doing it, and you're like, oh shit. So I think I was probably like 13, 14. So I had only maybe a couple years under my belt practicing, kinda.
Yeah.
And I had some friends over, so this was in my childhood home, which was absolute like definitely, I mean, all homes have spirits, but this one had, I want to say, a minimum of 5 that were very prominent. Like, and they weren't even like just house spirits, they were like spirits that were in the house, if that
Mm.
makes sense.
Yeah.
Um, and so I had always felt them, and like some more than others, specific areas of the room and or of the house. And when I had two friends over, I told them, I was like, we should go around and go into each room and just write down like what we feel, and like if we can identify how old we think the spirit is, what gender we think they are, what name we would give them. And we didn't like talk. I was like, we shouldn't talk. We should all just have our notes and go through each room and then compare notes when we get back. And of course, like I'm just doing this to be like, I'm spooky because I'm a 14-year-old. But then we all sat down and compared notes, and like as we're flipping through, we're all like, oh, like getting almost the same exact answers of each
Yes.
thing. Of like on each thing, we're like, oh, I think it's this one like definitely feels like a human spirit, and this
Mhm.
one is like a teenage boy, and I would name him this. And then there's like one in the hallway that like doesn't feel human, and like this is what, like, you know, and we all had these same things. The other two friends aren't practitioners.
Yeah.
They weren't even like into all the
Wow.
spooky stuff. Both of them just do it because they're friends with me, and I'm the weird one, and they like to, you know, just they humor me. And
Yeah.
so that's when they're like, all of us were like, hmm, interesting. And then the
Yeah.
second time that I guess would be a good, what is it, exercise for spirit work, is I was living in California at the time. I had just found a community that was like openly witchy, and they were holding a spirit communication workshop. And so I was like, fuck yeah, let's do it.
Yeah.
And there was one exercise where they had a group of people, and they all stood in a circle, and you would pass around an item.
Mm.
And this one specific item that I remember really well, it was this little cardboard box, like tiny little thing. And you would just hand it to each person. And like you said, you're not trying to make assumptions. You're just whatever comes to you.
Yeah.
And it was cool because everybody was getting totally different things, but they all made sense when we found out what it was. Because
Yeah.
like it's a little cardboard box. We have no idea what the hell's in it.
Mhm.
We're handing it around, and one person just like, I keep feeling tugging on my arm. I don't know. I just keep feeling like just like light tugs. Another person goes, I'm smelling grass. And then another person, like, I remember being like, I'm just like, I'm not anxious, but like I have a lot of energy. Like I want to like hop around, and like, you know, like I feel bubbly inside, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
And so we handed it around, and then the person that like knew what was in it, she's just smiling all big, and she goes, do you guys want to know what it is? And we're like, yeah. And she goes, it's the ashes of a very small dog. And
Oh.
yeah,
Oh
right. And
my
so like
gosh.
all of these little, all, and a lot of these people again aren't practitioners. They're a lot of them were just interested in spooky stuff. Some of them were ghost hunters. Like some of them were dragged along with their partners, like had no idea what was going on. So
Mhm.
it's proof that like you don't need to be a practitioner or like a medium or whatever. It's that interconnectedness. It's like
Yeah.
interconnectedness. Wow, my dyslexia, like I'm trying to see it in my brain and it's not working.
Oh no. I feel that.
Um, it's the connecting of
Yeah.
everybody, of like of all of that energy. And I think it was just the coolest thing because you saw people who you knew was like, this is bullshit, like
Yeah.
kind of be like, huh, oh, all of us got that, but just in different ways.
Yes. Oh, I
So
love that so
isn't
much.
that a cool
Oh,
story?
I love and totally makes sense. I mean, the tugging on the arm, the
Hmm.
light, the energy that you felt, the
Yeah.
like, oh yeah, that's exactly how our seance session was that I had last year. It was just, it's so cool to see. And you're right, you don't have to be a professional. It's actually a really great way to just work on your energy sensing in general and just build your intuition like that. So I
Yeah.
totally agree.
Yeah.
I want to talk to you for like 1,000 hours today, but like I could keep talking about this forever.
I'm
Maybe.
not doing anything. You're fine.
Oh, sweet. Okay, well,
Yeah.
I do have one more question for you. Do you want to talk about books a little bit? Like what are your
Always.
Okay, good, because me too. What's your favorite plant spirits books and death magic books and everything that we've been talking about today? Like give me all of it.
Oh, okay. Oh my God, my favorites. Fuck. Let's see. I think, oh, I moved it too. So there's Conversations with Plants.
I have
That's
not
my
read that.
favorite. Hmm. This one is like holistic, I would say. You wouldn't find this in an occult. I literally just filmed, well, not just filmed, but I just edited a video and I'm posting it tomorrow. That has all of the non-occult books that have helped me in my practice.
Oh,
So this is one of them. I think it's like one of the first ones. Um, there's another one that it's like a classic, the Herbal Alchemists. I don't know where I put it. The Herbal Alchemist's Handbook.
mhm.
That one's fantastic for working with herbs and whatnot. Uh, oh my God, I have so many.
It's a hard
Um,
question.
yeah, it's a difficult question. So those, I would say those two are like probably my tops for herbal, and then death magic, Walking the Twilight Path. I'm trying
Mm,
to see if I can find it. Walking the Twilight Path is so good. It's less about like you're working with death directly. It's not
okay.
working with like spirits or with the dead or anything. It's working directly with the energy of death and
Oh,
getting
okay.
to know it better and being closer with that.
Okay.
Um, let's
I'm
see.
literally writing down these books as you're telling me because
Yeah, yeah, they're fantastic.
yeah.
Spirit work. Let's see. There is this one is the best one.
Oh, I so agree. I just finished it.
So good.
Hmm.
It's just so good.
Hmm.
It's it was just refreshing to read. I just adore Jason Miller's work
Yeah.
because a lot of it, it's just like, yes, this is what I mean when I'm trying to say. Like he just it's
Yes.
very clear that he's been in this for the long haul. um
Yes.
and then I think there's another one, uh La Santa Muerte by Thomas Prower.
Hmm.
I don't remember the full book name. It's something about La Santa Muerte.
Okay.
But Thomas Prower is the author. Really, really good book. There's a lot of really good meditations. And again, like you're more so working with the energy of death because that's what La Santa Muerte is.
Mhm.
Um, and less like with the dead. With the dead, oh, I think I actually gave that to Frankie. The Book of Seances by Claire Goodchild
Oh,
is a
I
good
saw
one.
that one. Okay.
So good.
Okay.
Yeah. Especially if you're just wanting to, like, if you're just diving into working with the dead and spirits and like
Mhm.
mainly like human spirits, whereas consorting with spirits is like all spirits. And then
Yeah.
the Book of Seances is specifically like ancestors or like if you're going to a cemetery. So those are also really good. I think those are my tops.
Ah,
Yeah,
okay.
yeah.
I
Do you
love
have
this. I
any?
love it. Yeah. So I'm glad that you gave me some that I have not read yet. Like that makes me really happy because I need to read books like all the time. So I brought a couple. I don't have a favorite book for plant spirits yet because I have so many books on herbalism and so many books on the metaphysical properties of herbs, but I can't find that one book that has both, that talks about like the medicinal aspects and then also the magical aspects of the plant. So yeah, is that the one? Okay. I'm gonna
Yeah, I
get
mean, like it doesn't talk too much about like specifically the magical, but it does talk about like the energies and why to use
Mm,
that. Um, yeah.
yes.
So
Okay. That's good to know because I am on the hunt for my favorite plant spirit book. But I was going to recommend, I have like so many death books here. So I'll just like blow through them super fast. The Consorting with Spirits, I think, is amazing. I was going to recommend that one too. I'm surprised that he talked about working with demons so much as he did, and I'm glad he did. But I thought it was going to be more communicating with human spirits. So I was pleasantly surprised when I read his book that there was a lot of demon work, working with spirits other than human in there as well. So
like
I really
local
like that.
spirits a lot. I loved that section. Yeah.
Yes, I agree. I love that. I'm about to review that book on my channel in a couple weeks. But anyway, so that's a great book. And then there was another mediumship book, but I think that your seance book probably trumps that. But I just finished, it's called Death Nesting. And it's Ancient and Modern Death Doula Techniques by Anne Marie Keppel. And so this book is great specifically if not necessarily, you don't have to want to be a death doula, but it really does help you take care of people who are dying and go through that whole process, which I think is really important for us all to be able to do, whether you're a death doula or not. So I really like Death Nesting. It talks about, some of the sensory things we experience when we die and just kind of looking at death as more of from like an analytical and spiritual approach. So it's not so fear inducing, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
My two favorite Buddhist books for anybody that's watching this, that for me, I think about death almost every single day. And for a long time, I had a lot of fear around it to the point where it was almost handicapping my ability to even function in my daily life because I was so afraid of dying. So there are two books here. They're both Buddhist based because, of course, I'm bringing in my Buddhist background, but I really love this book. It's called No Death, No Fear. Thich Nhat Hanh is my favorite Buddhist writer, and he really, really helped me get through that fear of death and just accept it as a natural part of life. And then there's also Fearless Death, Buddhist Wisdom on the Art of Dying, and it's basically how to die with grace, how to not have that fear. So I think both of those books
What was the subtitle on that one?
Oh, it was Fearless Death, Buddhist Wisdom on the Art of Dying. If you can see that. But yeah, these two books for sure really helped alleviate my death anxiety. And I definitely recommend that to literally everybody, whether you're a Buddhist or not, because
awesome. Well, that'll go. I know exactly. I'm going to read that one and then I'm going to give it to a friend because I know exactly who to give that one to.
Yeah.
Thank you.
I think the No Death, No Fear is probably my favorite over the other one, but they're both great. So yeah, hopefully that helps. But anyways, well, thank you so much for coming on my channel. This was so fun. I'm glad we got to just like have a casual chat and talk about all things creepy. That makes me happy.
I loved it. Yeah, I had a good time. Thank you. And also, like, I'm still blown away that we both have the same theory.
Dude, I know.
Just like I've never met somebody with the same theory. Yeah. So that is fucking bonkers.
Same.
Yeah. Cool.
I agree. But yeah, I will all of her stuff linked below for everyone watching this, of course. You probably already know who Olivia is, but I'm going to link her channel anyways. I will see you all in another video very soon. Goodbye, everyone.